Hello and welcome to another episode of Creating Cultures that Outperform. I'm Frank Wander, and I'm here with my co-host Terri Mays, certified culture engineer. I'm the CEO and founder of PeopleProductive. Welcome to another episode. Today we're going to be talking about how framing affects decision making. This is something that has been studied over the years. Actually, Kahneman and Tversky in 1981 discovered that the way questions and information is framed greatly influences people's decision making. And this affects you if you're in a corporation presenting ideas, if you're presenting something that's happened, if you're in sales, how you frame the information and present it to the individuals that you're presenting to is going to influence their decision making. Let's take a look at a couple of these things, right, Ter?
Yes,
Some initial thoughts out of the box. I don't want to hog anything over here.
right. So this whole framing effect you can really use this to work to your advantage. If you know how people are going to receive what or think about how people are going to receive what you're saying, think about your messaging as if you were receiving it and not just stating the facts. A lot of times people focus more on just sharing information, but they don't really consider how people receive that information. So the framing effect really helps you and encourages you to think about the receiver more than just communicating information. And so, how can you communicate that information in a way that people want to buy into what you're saying? So, how can you frame things up to make them more likely to say yes? And the way you do that is by finding something that they can gain. We're all a little bit selfish and we just want to know what's in it for me. So if you can put what's in it for me into your message, it helps people buy into it quicker and just it frames it up so that they can only say yes. And that's really what you want to do.
Yeah. So let's look at a couple of examples. Kahneman, and Tversky in their book, brought up a bunch of different examples. One was, advertising and selling and promoting yogurt. Companies found out very early on that, if they said, hey, the yogurt's got only 20% fat or it's 80% fat free, that everybody was drawn to the 80% fat free. So they framed it, they inverted the information because the information was they looked at the contents of the yogurt. Hey, we have a 20% fat here. But if you invert that into 80% fat free, it is much more acceptable and people are much more likely to buy the product. So this has had a big influence on marketing and marketing decision making and how they go to market with products. So you can look inside a company, for instance, people running an IT area where they've got to take the system down for an hour on a Saturday, do some kind of maintenance. Doesn't happen as much now as it used to. Things are much more real time. But you could say, we're going to have the system will be down for an hour on Saturday, or system's going to be up for 23 hours on Saturday, be a minor inconvenience. We'll let you know the details. Two different ways of presenting the information. One is feels much better to the people you're talking to, no question about it.
Yeah. It's all about what am I going to get out of this? How is it
Mhm.
benefiting me? How is it helping me? And so once you show people, you're getting just 1 hour versus you're getting 23 hours of something good. You're getting 1 hour of something bad. Just
Yeah,
focusing in on that 23 hours really helps shape the picture. And most people would say, oh, that's not a big deal. It's
yeah,
just 1 hour.
just
But
1 hour,
go
right?
in and you just start talking about how you're going to bring the system down for 1 hour. You've already lost them because you said, I'm going to bring the system down. They
Yeah,
stop listening to you after that because people don't want to lose anything. They want to feel
right.
like you're adding something to them. So if you talk about the benefits of why you're bringing the system down, talk about those benefits first and then say, oh, by the way, it's only going to be 1 hour, or you'll have 23 hours that you can actually use the system
Yep.
while we make this minor change. You can use phrases and wording that helps people see it's really not that big of a deal. But
Yeah.
if you go in and you blow it out of proportion and you give them all the negatives first, then people will stop listening to you and they won't buy into what you're saying. They'll fight you tooth and nail for 1 hour of downtime. Like
Yeah.
people will fight you over that because they feel like you're taking something away from them.
That's right. Humans are wired to avoid a loss. So that loss aversion is, what we're seeing in this particular example. And you don't want to focus on the loss, you want to focus on the gain.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a sleight of hand trick. So you want to have people thinking about all the good things as you bring in something that may not always be something that's a gain, right? So
mhm,
sometimes there's changes that need to occur with processes, with systems, with programs. There are just changes that need to be made, and sometimes those changes are bitter.
mhm,
But you can frame the change up in a way that makes people more likely to understand the change. They may not ever like it, right? So sometimes things happen and they're just not things that we like. But at least I can respect why we're making the change. I understand why we're making the change. And I can respect that the decision needs to be made to do so, even if I don't like it. But I can
yeah.
still get on board with the change that's being made. So make sure you're transparent with people. Sometimes you can you cannot share all the details, but when you can do, share
Yeah,
the
do it.
information with people. Let them know why you're making the decision you're making. Let them in on your thought process. It really humanizes you as a
Mhm,
leader so that people don't see that you're just or think that you're just thinking about yourself and the higher ups and nobody's thinking about the little man. The little guy's just left there to fend for himself. We're just the low man on the totem pole.
Oh, yeah.
People
How you
have that.
frame that's super important.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they have that thinking in the back of their mind. So if you can do anything you can to kind of cancel that before they start going down that path, you really put yourself in a better position for people to receive what you're saying. And you frame it up in a way that makes people feel valued and appreciated, like they really are an important part of the team. When you make people feel like that, even when it's something negative that has to happen, they can understand and they'll buy into what
Mhm.
you're trying to get them to do.
Yeah, no question. So, very important to think through the thing and understand these tactics overall, right? You've got to understand the audience. So you have this frame inversion where instead of focusing on the 20% fat, it's 80% fat free. You can change the reference point, reframe the reference point. So, an example there was this decision to actually, bring Red Bull over to the United States to sell it. And a marketing firm was hired to look at the product and said, how does this really compare to soft drinks? And a marketing firm that studied soft drinks and bring them to market said, this is the worst product ever, small can, it's bitter. We don't think this is going to sell at all. So they changed the reference point and they didn't call it a soft drink. They said this is an energy drink and it's very powerful. That's why it's in a very small can. And, the rest of it's history. So if they went to market and hadn't reframed what they were, it probably wouldn't have been successful, quite honestly. So once again, that reframing allowed them to bring that to market and have a great, great success. So change the reference point. Another thing you can do. So another example, and this was a Starbucks barista, and it was a reframing, but all of the baristas in this particular location would say, is that everything you want today? And the people would say, yes, I'm fine. Thank you. And the one barista said at the checkout, what else sounds delicious to you today? So, completely reframe the experience at the end here. And, somebody say, oh, little chocolate brownie looks great. And boom, suddenly, sold, got it.
Yeah,
So you know, adding, making it more of a positive, is this, are we done? Or, hey, is something else delicious here we can get for you?
right.
And very successful tactic, very successful.
The same thing works with
Mhm.
getting an opportunity to help somebody. If you can ask them, "How can I help you?" It really pushes your brain into a mindset of, "Let me think about this and
Yeah,
dream," as
perfect.
opposed to just ending the conversation. If you really do offer your help to
Mhm.
people take that to heart, and it really does make a huge impact on decision making and your ability to think outside of just the box of whatever you were trying to accomplish. when you start thinking beyond that, it really opens up the possibilities. And that's a great way to live your life where you're constantly looking for possibilities versus all of the negative reasons why this won't work or
Yeah.
focusing on how this can't be done. But to get your brain, and we've talked about this before, but this is another way to get
Mhm.
your brain trained so that it's looking for possibilities. It's looking for options. It's looking for how can we, as opposed to no, we can't.
Yeah, I mean, these little reframings, they're so powerful and they do work.
Yeah.
And,
And it's simple, it's a really small change.
yeah,
It's not a big drastic thing that you have to do to shift your mindset or the mindset of other people that you're communicating with. It's really about focusing in on the receiver and
yeah,
understanding what might be important to them and then communicate that in a way where it's almost like a win-win for everybody and you can't say no.
yeah, and, look at, the simple thing where, you could just say the item's $20 or it's a $30 item on sale today for $20. Oh, I just gained $10. Oh my god. Same
Yeah,
item, and, you get many more sales by
yeah,
reframing the price of that item.
yeah,
So reframing is really powerful. You should think about it and use it in business. There's no question this is something that anybody can employ in any company, in any job, and there's many times you're interacting with people, think about that.
yeah.
Powerful.
I used to work in retail part-time, and it was all a game. Like,
Yeah,
throughout the week, the sales percentage off would change, but it was pretty much the same price all the time. They would just change the percentages to make you think that you were getting more off, but really the prices were pretty much staying around the same. They
yeah,
would offer you, 30% off with no coupon, or they'd offer you 20% off with the coupon. And then it's
yeah,
like they play this shell game, and it was always, 20, 25% off was pretty much the standard price, and they would just play the shell game with changing
mhm,
things so that, it felt like you were getting more off, or they'd offer, you get an extra 25% off. And it's just
yeah,
like, well, it's just 25% off. So you really have to think about the mind does, it's looking for ways to gain and for things to benefit them. So you're constantly looking for that. So if you can
oh, yeah.
find a way to use that to your advantage, it'll be very helpful for you.
Yeah, and you can look at it in terms of success and failure. You could say, "Well, there's a 10% chance we're gonna fail," or, "We have a 90% chance of succeeding if we do this." And
Yeah,
people are much more likely to go with the 90% chance of success than the 10% chance of failure. That's the way
right.
this works.
That's right.
Yeah. So think about that. Framing effects are very powerful. If you didn't have a chance to watch last week's episode on self limiting beliefs amongst individuals and teams and what you could do in response to that, what can you do to manage that, to deal with it head on as a leader of an organization or as a coworker? I think that's an excellent episode and something that people don't normally think about. They think of self limiting beliefs as really focused on individuals, but teams, organizations, departments, they exist everywhere, and you've got to be aware of them, and you should take a look at that episode. It's out there. I think it was a good one. I think
Yeah.
they're all good actually, Tara, but
Yeah, I think so too. We might be a little biased, but
yeah.
it's actually really good information. And even if you don't walk away from our show feeling like, that was the best thing I ever heard, the concepts are still the concepts.
Yeah,
So take the information and use it to help build your teams. That's really why we do this, is because we're passionate about building cultures that outperform and
yeah,
not burn people out. That's kind of the golden space to be in, where people don't feel burnt out, but they're able to perform at high levels. And so take this information and use it to your advantage. We'd love to hear from you at coach@peopleproductive.com. We'd love to hear from you, hear
yeah.
your
Thank
ideas and
you.
thoughts of how this
Absolutely.
might be impacting you and how you've been able to use some of the tips and tricks that we've offered in these videos. So please reach out. We'd love to hear.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Terry. Yes, please feel free to reach out. This is our way of giving back, actually. We do help companies create cultures that outperform without burning people out. And a lot of it is using, psychology and positive energy to get things done in companies. There's multiple ways of doing everything. And there is always, one choice that's just better than another. So, we get into cognitive psychology, we get into all the experiments, we get into these human factors of leadership, what the emotional experience is, how to shape it, how to build a high performing environment by looking at enabling factors. There's just so much information out there. And remember, you're the product and a better you is the solution. So the more you know, the better you're going to perform, the better you're going to do. Today's topic is about influence, really. You want to have influence, then learn how to present and share information in ways that are much more palatable to the people that you work with or you're selling to, whatever the case may be. So we're here every Wednesday, 3:00 Eastern time. Please join us for another super episode, Creating Cultures that Outperform. And please smack that bell and subscribe on YouTube. We'd appreciate it.
Yes. 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 Bye for now.